What is good, YouTube? A Squad 72, and today I have a My Hero Academia video for you. Um, Now these two episodes, 41 and 42, these were interesting episodes. We get introduced to a couple new characters. Well, actually, technically, a lot of new characters. Depends on, I guess, what you think is a lot. But a lot of interesting things happen in these two episodes, and a couple things caught my eye. And I guess we'll just pretty much, well, this is what happens. We kick off right where we left off at the training camp, and Class A, they're doing their intense training. Like, you have individuals who do their individual training, and you have a couple students here and there that team up because their quirks kind of work off of each other. Perfect example would be Kishimara and Ojiro, the guy with the tail. And Kishimara, he has the ability to just harden, which those two work off each other very well, because I guess Ojiro has to I guess increases the power of his tail attacks, and so by hitting Kishimara, it'll improve his hitting ability and Kishimara's hardening ability, I guess. But yeah, so those two were like the main two people I saw actually working together to improve their quirks and break through their boundaries. Because what was also said early on in these two episodes was that I know I spoke about it not recently, but on the last video I made about how their quirks reminded me of in this movie Chronicle, how they came across their powers. They ended up getting these powers, and it was more like a muscle. And so they reinforced that in this episode, saying that, hey, yeah, your quirks are like, your muscles. So like any other thing that you would use more often, it would grow. So like the equivalent is like quirks and muscles, same thing, same principles apply. So, and they were saying that naturally, as they grow up, as they mature, like their quirks will get stronger, but they don't have time to wait for that, because we have villains that are out, and villains are constantly attacking. So that was one of the reasons why they're trying to put the rush on the development of the quirks for these students. And so Class B ends up showing up, and they're seeing Class A go through their wacky training, and they're thinking, like, what's really going on here. And so just kind of like I said, these training exercises for the quirks are individualized for each particular person. And so, like, for example, you had Bakugo with his hands in boiling water, because his sweat is actually what gives him his explosive powers. He uses his sweat as like some type of not catalyst, but it's very integral to his explosive quirk. And so he's trying to improve his blast ability, and just the intensity of his attacks and different things like that, and expand his sweat gland. So I guess he can sweat more, which would again increase his explosive power. So that's one thing. And then you had Todoroki switching between fire and ice quirks, since he has technically two quirks. So his ideal end goal of his training would be to either be comfortable, because see, initially like say if you go back to the sports festival, when they had to battle each other, his body really can't take too much of his cold quirk, and then his heat quirk, I don't think he can control it as best as as good as he can control his ice powers. So the whole deal with him is to switch between fire and ice and be able to control them, but also maybe one day like use them both at the same time, which that's going to be interesting, because that was something that caught my attention. Because since he controls both quirks, I don't see why he couldn't use both at the same time. Again, I think that just comes with time and experience. But I mean, he seems to have a pretty good grasp on it already, seeing that he's been using this quirk his entire life. And seeing that his dad is Endeavor, the number 2 hero, I guess, in the world. So, I mean, he has that going for him. Other than that, you had the tape guy, Sero. He's just like shooting off tape, and they're trying to, I guess, maximize his tape output and his speed and how fast he makes his tape. I don't know. I always thought that dude was kind of iffy. He's like a weirdo character to me. I don't know. I guess the quirk to make tape to me just seems lame, but that's, I mean, I guess whatever. So so yeah, like those are just some of the examples that Class B saw when they showed up to the training camp. And so they don't want to fall behind with the instructor. And I didn't catch his name. I didn't catch his name or quirk. I went back and I watched the episodes like twice each, and so I still didn't catch his name. I still don't know who he is exactly, but he's an instructor but he wants Class B to pretty much just be better than Class A. He wants them to get some spotlight, some shine, which is understandable, because I mean, he probably takes pride in his students, and you know, if they're doing bad, it reflects on him because he's their instructor. So you know, we can't have that. So yeah, so he's there. Class B shows up, and then they're wondering, okay, so how come we only have so many actual pro heroes? It's like 40 people here, and we only have 6 instructors. And that's when we get introduced to Ragdoll. It's other members of the Pussycat Squad from episode, like I want to say 40, and they're there. You have Ragdoll. We were already introduced to Pixie Bob and Mandala, and so now it's Ragdoll and Tiger, who they both show up, and they're part of this squad, and this cat themed squad, which is, I mean, they're all right. I don't have any qualms with them, nothing like that. They seem like pretty decent characters. But yeah, so they're there, and they're there to, again, like maximize and break through these limits so these students can actually get their quirks not under control, but just be more efficient and just be more productive, I guess, with the quirks. And so then they explain so Deku, this is something that still kind of piques my interest, because think about it, like Deku asks Eraserhead, he's like, hey, you know, I thought All Might was showing up, I thought the other instructors were showing up, and Eraserhead's like, no, we really can't have All Might here, because we feel like he's the source of like why all the villains are attacking. And so I mean, it makes sense, because they still don't know what the villains are up to, which they're really good at keeping that a secret amongst themselves, because you would think with the police and the other heroes and different things like that, you would have somewhat of an idea of what these villains are after, but up until this point, they still have no clue. Which I mean, I guess that's a pat on the back for the villains for being able to keep stuff in house. But I just find it weird that they have not even the slightest inkling of what's going on between heroes and villains and different things like that. But yeah, so with that being said, though, we jump back to, I want to say, yeah, we jump back to the Coda situation, because after the training, after different things like that, they made I want to say they made curry. Yeah, they made curry. And Coda, and I say Coda now because I called him Kato in the previous video that I made. Shame on me. But so Coda is he's at his little secret spot where he just looks over the horizon. He has like a very good view of where he's at. And so Deku decides, you know what, I'm gonna go bring us some curry, different things like that. And they get into this, I can't even really call it a debate or like an argument. It was more Coda just like shouting at Deku, just telling him to leave him alone, he's not hungry, and different things like that. And you can see that Deku's really concerned about this kid, because he's in a dark place. And I mean, it's figuratively and literally, like, he's in a dark place. It's nighttime, and he's chilling by himself on this cliffside. And I started wondering to myself, as like the scene progressed, like, why doesn't anybody know where this kid goes in the middle of nowhere? And he's like 7 or 8 years old. Like, nobody's watching this kid. But I guess that's just how my mind works. But the thing is, previously in the episode, I want to say 40, either 39 or 40, they explain how, you know, it's his parents died, he doesn't like heroes, but it's broken down even more on a deeper level in this episode, because it's not just the heroes that he has a problem with, it's the quirks, it's the whole society, it's anything involving anything superhero he doesn't like, because he feels as if they took his parents from him. It's one of those things where he really can't move past what happened to his parents. He's put up this wall, and I think I spoke on this before in another video, but he puts up these walls, and he wants help, but he doesn't know like how to go about getting over what he's feeling in the loss of his parents, which is understandable for a child. And so Deku is trying to talk to him, he's trying to reason with him, and he tells him his story. Well, he doesn't say it's actually him, but he's like, you know what, he tells him a story about how he didn't have a quirk. You know, he always wanted a quirk, he wanted to be a hero, he admired the heroes, and basically it comes down to a perspective thing. And so you see this dynamic between Koda and Deku, like two sides of a coin, where it's like Koda hates everything about quirks and abilities and superheroes and villains. He just thinks the whole thing is just nonsense. And Deku is just like, hey, listen, man, it doesn't have to be that way, because if you look at it like that, this whole experience is going to be that much more painful for you. And as a kid, like he's not arguing, he's trying to get through to this kid because obviously he cares. But the thing is that you can't really reason with emotions, especially when somebody's that young. And so after all this happens, Deku's talking. He asks Todoroki for advice on how to handle the situation, and Todoroki tells him, he's like, listen, man, you can't argue and you can't reason with a child. It's annoying, for one, and two, it's not about what you're saying to him, because Todoroki believes that actions speak louder than words. And so you have to show him, it doesn't have to be all bad. And that whole thing happened, and he kind of, because Deku kept thinking that, hey, what would All Might do? What would All Might say? And that, I mean, you have to realize too, I think Deku has to realize that All Might is All Might. And I mean, All Might's been All Might his whole life. So what will work for All Might might not work for him, because as we seen in the previous seasons, his workout routine, how he tried to train him, like those things worked for All Might but didn't work for Deku. And I mean, some of the stuff, I mean, like the workout plan, like, yeah, that might have worked a little bit and different things like that, but you can clearly see that what works for All Might doesn't work for Deku. And so Todoroki was telling him, was like, listen, first of all, you shouldn't be getting involved in this delicate situation with this kid, unless we're here to train and not worry about what this kid is going through. But at the same time, it's Deku sees this kid who's in need, and he genuinely wants to help. So Todoroki tells him, listen, man, it's not about what you say to him. It's not about how you feel. It's about what actions this kid is going to take to get past this. And until he makes that decision, and I mean, I'm paraphrasing what he said. This is just how I interpret what he was saying. He was just telling him that, listen, man, you can't tell him how to get through this. There's no way you can guide this kid on how to get through this. You just have to show him, through your actions, how to, I guess, not like get over it, but it's just like you have to show him what it means to be a hero, and you can't talk him through that. And so that's what pretty much happened. So he's like, yeah, whatever you need to do. He's like, I wouldn't get involved with that, but since you are, you just have to show him, and you have to because he's like, what's not important is the words that you're saying. What's important is that this kid has to make a choice. And then to me, that was big. That actually showed to me the maturity of Todoroki, because he's like, listen, man, I wouldn't get involved with this, and this is how I see things should be handled. And you can really see, like, it kind of gives you well, not even kind of gives you, it shows you his thought process. And like, for a high school kid to be like, yeah, man, what you're doing is you'd be better off, talking to the wood that we just chopped. You know what I mean? So that was a pretty nice moment to see between characters, because you have one kid who's asking advice from another kid about saving the kid. So it's like it's a whole thing going on right there. But after that, that was like pretty much the biggest thing, because oh, I almost forgot. So when Deku left Koda on the cliffside, you see this crater. And I know I'm kind of jumping around with the episodes, because I'm just pretty much talking about the interesting parts, and not just just the normal stuff. But you see this crater, and in the cave side, and initially I thought that was from Deku, because he was frustrated. He's like, man, I can't get through to this kid. But I thought that was from like Deku, like punching the cliffside or something, or whatever it may be. But I had to watch it again, and just to make sure that's what I saw. But like, they didn't give you any inclination that it was Deku who did that, because he didn't walk up from that direction. So I was wondering, okay, I was like, how did that crater get there? Like, the kid's been there the whole time, but we don't know if he has a quirk or not, because when they introduce his character, it's like, oh yeah, that's just Koda. He's my cousin. Different things like that. To I think that's Mandela's little cousin. And so they don't show you like what his quirk is, or even if his quirk manifested. So that was one thing that I noticed too. So after all of that, the Vanguard shows up, and this was pretty dope to me because I wasn't sure what these guys is like these guys abilities were. I knew they were pretty serious business because when they showed up in the previous season, they were like, hey, you know, we want to be down with the crew. And so they formed this Vanguard. Excuse me. So yeah, they show up, but it's only 7 of them. And so you see the guy with the stitches on his face. You see the girl with who's like crazy with the syringes or whatever it is. She's just like bat crazy. So we see them. We see a couple other people and two masked men and like a lizard dude. So we see like 7 different people, and he's all like, yeah, you know, the Vanguard's here, but we're not gonna move until we have all 10 members. And you know, these heroes, these kids don't know that, you know, their peace just rests in our hands. Like we're gonna come in and we're gonna shake the game up, and we're gonna throw hands. And so at first I didn't think these guys were really about anything, because like they're new characters. I know they're gonna be like their debut, far as like what they're gonna do is gonna be huge. Not like huge in the sense of like, oh man, I can't believe what just happened, but to the part that it's just like, okay, these are newer characters. They're gonna showcase them in a way that makes them look cool and seem like they have, you know, they mean business basically. So that happens, and so it just jumps into the next episode where they have this courage test where they have to scare each other in the woods, which is, to me, just seems like a bad idea, because I mean, you know, villains are after you, you know, like they can attack and show up at any moment, but we're gonna just go play out in the woods in the dark. To me, that's not a very good idea. But hey, I'm not an instructor, so forget what I say. So yeah, so basically they're out playing this weird game where they scare each other. I guess, like I said, it's a courage test, and the other members apparently show up because a couple people get scared, and you can hear the screams throughout the woods because they're scared of each other. Everything seems to be fine, and then the attack commences on the campgrounds. And Dabi, this guy, let me okay, I didn't know what this guy's ability was, but when I saw he had blue flames, I was like, this is instantly number one. This is my guy. My money's on him 8 ways to Sunday. So Dabi shows up, he commences the attack, and you see like the poison gas, and you see the chick with the syringes and the mask. She's hiding in the woods. And you know what, it was interesting to see this happen, but at the same time, we knew from previous episodes what Mandala and Pixie Bob can do, since she has the earthbender ability, like earth flow, and Mandala has the telepathy. So Pixie Bob gets taken out from Jump Street. I mean, like easy mode, like 1-2 Dunzo Funzo. So that whole thing happened. I was kind of splunked out because she was caught off guard, but at the same time, these guys they mentioned, hey, you know, we're the elite squad, we're the Vanguard action squad. Like we come through, we don't play any games, we get the job done. So Pixie Bob is taken down, and Tiger and Mandala have to take on Spinner, and I want to say the name is like Maj or Mange or something like. Nah, I think it's Maj. I don't know. Whatever. This dude who looks like a chick, but it's probably a dude. But yeah, they fight off against those guys, and the interesting thing is too is that they mentioned Stain, the hero killer from the previous season, and they believe what he believes. You know, he's these fake heroes and different things like that. But the interesting thing is that we have pro heroes, right? And then we have the Vanguard, and these are elite guys as well. They're not, I don't think they're as known, but they mean business. And so as I'm watching these actually 4 fight. Mandala takes on Spinner, and Tiger takes on Mange. I'm gonna just call them Mange just because whatever. So they're fighting these two, and they seem pretty equally matched. And I realize this is like the showcase of the Vanguard Action Squad. So they're gonna look like, you know, they actually have some, you know, they have something about them that's gonna kind of put them over the edge a little bit, which is perfectly fine. But I found it interesting that they were able to hang with the pro heroes in the short little snippet that we got of them fighting. So that's pretty cool because Tiger throws a mean blow to Mange, and he catches it in his hands, and they have this back and forth. And you see Spinner and Mandela, they're going back and forth, and they're having their conversation while they fight. And it's interesting because you really don't get to see too much hand-to-hand combat like that. Far as like heroes and villains fighting, and it's mostly quirk based. And so that was interesting to see. So I'm interested to see where that goes because you know, the heroes have to win, but it's just how they win is what I'm interested in, because these guys, they're playing for keeps, because they're there for a specific reason. So anything other than their reason, it's like free game. So it's like, yeah, you know, we can take these guys out, or we can just play around with them until the objective is completed. So which brings me to another point. So Pixie Bob got taken out early, real early, like pre-game early. And then I'm not sure about this, so don't really quote me on this. But I think Ragdoll's dead. And I know we didn't see a body. We didn't see a body at all, because we saw Moonfish. We see Moonfish in front of a random hand, and it wasn't his hand. And so now I'm just like, man, what happened to Ragdoll? Because she was, as Todoroki and Bakugo, they were like, hey, you know, she was the check-in point, or she was something like that, like a midpoint, a check-in point, and that's where she was supposed to be, and she's not there, but it's blood in a random hand. So she might just be off screen. She might have gotten away, but I think she's dead. And hopefully they prove me wrong. But man, that's wow. So yeah, so now they have to worry about the Moonfish guy. I still don't even know what his quirk is, because they haven't showed that part yet. But yeah, he took out Ragdoll easy, like low difficulty. So yeah, that whole thing happened, and then we switch back to Koda, who's on the cliffside again. Like this is the second night in succession where this kid, just nobody knows where he goes. And what hit me too is that nobody literally knows where this kid goes, but is because Deku tells Mandalay, he's like, listen, I know where he's at, because she clearly does not know where this kid goes. Like, as a chaperone, as like a guardian to this kid, she's doing a terrible job. So yeah, he's on the cliffside by himself. He's seeing the fire, he's seeing the poison, he's seeing all this stuff, and all of a sudden this cloaked guy shows up out of nowhere, and he's all like, hey, listen, man, I have to, like, I'm looking for a good spot to view. Like, I need a good viewpoint. And so he likes Koda's hat, and he's like, oh man, I like your hat, I'll trade you my mask for it, because he's a full-blown weirdo. So I mean, that's to be expected. But come to find out, this guy, Muscular, he ended up killing Koda's parents, and he remembers his face. And so now Koda's the equivalent to like a deer in the headlights at this point. It's terrible to put it that way, but he's pretty much a deer in the headlights, because this guy killed his parents. The first thing he hollers out is mom and pop, and he can't move. So he tries to get away, and Deku shows up. And this is a pretty decent fight between Deku and this new muscular guy, because from the opening, when I saw this particular guy, I'm like, okay, so he has like muscles. It's like a lot of muscles. I didn't know like what his actual quirk did, because I always thought it was weird and it was creepy that like his muscular tissues on the outside of his skin. Like I thought like that's a good way to get an infection, but whatever. So they're going back and forth, and Deku has been training all day, and so he's like, man, like I trained all day. I've been training for these past few days. Now I have to fight this guy, and I have to save Koda too, which adds complexity to the situation, because now he's on his own, because when he swooped in to save Koda, his phone broke, so he can't call for backup. So it's a one-on-one fight, or 1-on-1.5, because I mean Koda's there, but he ain't doing much, because again, deer in the headlights. So all of this is going on, and he's explaining his quirk. He's explaining, yeah, I can manipulate my muscle mass, and it increases his speed, his strength, and you know, the whole superhuman thing. Fine, great, you know, basic ability. It's a decent ability, but it's very basic and creepy looking. But I mean, I guess it gets the job done, because he killed 2 heroes, so whatever. So Deku's trying to figure out the best way to handle this guy and save Koda at the same time, because he's like, yo, I gotta save this kid. So Then he actually spills the beans. Muscular spills the beans about, hey, you're on the list. You're that Midoriya kid. You're on the list too, but you know where Bakugo is? And he's like, oh man, you mentioned Bakugo, I can't think straight. So that whole thing happened as well. And pretty much during this fight, they go back and forth, and Deku he's at 5%, and that's nothing compared to this guy, because he doesn't have any barriers on him. He's out for blood. So he goes 100% and breaks his arm. Now, mind you, his his right arm was already broken. Actually, no, I'm sorry. His left arm was actually broken during the fight. And so he goes 100% and he breaks his other arm trying to fend this guy off, and it just doesn't work. He's just way too strong for it. And this whole part about like the whole training camp thing is about breaking limits. It's about, going plus ultra and above and beyond and all that fun stuff. And so Deku has 2 broke arms. So he tries to run away, but he's not fast enough. It just can't happen, especially not with Koda on his back. It just can't happen. He's in this until he's not in it anymore. So now this is where things get weird for me, because he already has 2 broke arms, and he's like, listen, when it hits, I need you to run. He's talking to Code. He's like, Code, I need you to run. I need you to get out of here and be safe. I'll take care of this guy. And he knows, like, man, it's no way I can get out of this. Like, he knows he's donezo. So Coda's like, when what hits, you have 2 broke arms. What are you doing? Now, my thoughts was, I thought he was gonna kick the guy, but nah, that's not the case. So as previously stated, 100% does nothing to this guy, especially when he sees it coming. So I don't know what he's gonna do at this point. Deku is just, I'm out of ideas. I'm gonna have to just die here and let this kid get away. So he's at 100% again, but since his arm is broken, his attack is weaker, which makes sense. And then this is when Koda's ability, I keep calling him ability, his quirk actually, I can't even say manifest, because they showed us in the last episode that he has a quirk. We just didn't know what it was, but he inherited a water quirk from his parents, which, I mean, that's fine and all. But basically, he uses his water quirk, and it almost shocked him, as if he didn't even know he had it. But I mean, what was the point in setting up the crater in the cliffside if he's just going to be surprised that he has a quirk now? You know what I mean? That didn't make any sense to me. So he didn't want to see anybody else get hurt, and he used his quirk, which caught Muscular off guard. So this is the thing. So Deku already, again, I stress this because he has 2 broke arms. I've never seen anybody fully punch anybody else 2 broke arms. This is something completely just new to me. So this is how it plays in my head. Deku shows up, breaks his phone. Deku throws a punch, breaks both his arms, and then all of a sudden, with the theme of everything breaking, he breaks his limits. Now, I'm all for breaking limits. Don't get me wrong, but like, we went from 5% to 100%, and then all of a sudden he pulls out 1,000,000% of Awful One. That's when I was like, all right, man, I tap. I'm tapping right now, because we just jumped. I don't know how many thousands. We jumped a lot of percentages. Like, his body could barely handle 100%, but now all of a sudden, his limit's broken. Like, his limit has been broken, so he can use 1,000,000% now. So where are these percentages coming from? And then if he's using 1,000,000% on an off guard Muscular, like, what's gonna happen to his body? You know what I mean? Because we've been through the sports festival when he broke all his fingers, and then he broke his arm, and he re-broke stuff, and he was destroying his body, which I get that that's the drawback for not having a vessel that's strong enough to maintain your quirk. So what was the drawback for the 1,000,000% Awful One? And they show him like still standing, and because he won, but at the same time, I'm thinking, at what cost? Because the healer, the old lady healer from the school, she's not at the camp, so who's gonna heal him up? how he's gonna get back down to the campgrounds, like with all this other stuff going on. So to me, I have questions, because we're breaking these limits so astronomically high that the drawback has to be like cataclysmic. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy. So yeah, that's one thing. That's pretty much what happened. So I'm looking to see how they resolve this issue, because again, like Dobby's still out there. He's not fighting anybody right now. The syringe chick, she's out there running amok. We don't know what she's doing right now. I mean, pretty much the rest, anybody other than Spinner and Mange and Moonlight, we don't know what they're doing right now. We know Muscular's he's down for the count right now. So we don't really know what's going on with the other members. So that's gonna be fleshed out in the next few episodes, which I look forward to. But I also want to see how this Deku thing's resolved, because I mean, he's accomplished goals. I mean, the whole point of going to the training camp was to you know, break your limits and go past and plus ultra. And I mean, trust me, I'm all for that. But 1,000,000%, really? Okay. But yeah, so yeah, I wonder what Koda's gonna do now that he's using his quirk, because he called Deku, oh, he's my hero now. He's like, this guy, he saved me. He remembers a talk he had with Mandala a long time ago about somebody's gonna just jump in and save his life, and they're gonna show him what a real hero's about. So Deku's now Koda's hero, and he showed him, you know, hey, listen, man, you can do some good stuff with your abilities. You can help people, and it doesn't have to be all bad. It's only all bad if you let it be all bad. So he's going through this whole like transition stage of getting out of this funk of, yeah, I lost my parents and everything's terrible, to, you know what, this guy, he finally got through his actions, through his effort to protect me from this lunatic. This guy's my hero. And he might even say some stuff like, hey man, I want to be like this guy. So I mean, you know, inspiration everywhere. So yeah, that was pretty much it for the episodes. I know I probably skipped over a couple things, but those are like the main highlights to me of these episodes. I like to see how the training for the other students paid off, seeing that we obviously see that the training paid off for Deku, but I'm interested to see how other students are gonna take this attack, especially since they're dealing with not just random villains. They're dealing with people who really know what they're doing. So again, this is going to be something that I look forward to. But if you guys enjoyed this, hit the like button, comment down below, subscribe, hit the bell, and share this video. Matter of fact, if you guys made it to this point in the video, put in the comment section like hashtag 1 million, like something 1,000,000% plus ultra. Matter of fact, actually, yeah, hashtag, actually, you know what, no, since the theme, the reoccurring thing, since we're breaking phones, breaking arms, and breaking limits, just put a hashtag break in the comment section if you made it this far. But yeah, I'll catch you guys in the next video, and holla at y'all later, man. Peace.